Security Minister of the last government, and by Wendy Grossman from the campaigning group Privacy International. Good evening. First of all, Lord West, do you think the UEA has legitimate fears?
I think I'd put it around a different way. I mean, we in this country rather like the Blackberry because one of the greatest threats to, I think, our population is people listening in and seeing what they're saying to each other and talking about. And that's why GCHQ at Cheltenham, CESG, actually have accredited the Blackberry because we allow, for example, civil servants and people to use it up to restricted level. We're very pleased that people are using a method of communication that has some security. Now, what it does do is means that if you, as a state, want to get in there, it adds complications to it. But overall, we quite like people having more secure communication.
But it is interesting because when you have the Gulf states saying they're desperate to attract business and they want to be a more open society, and at the same time announcing they're going to clamp down the Blackberry, it sends a very mixed signal.
I think it does send a mixed signal, and I think they need to think that through. I'm sure they're thinking that through at the moment. I imagine they have concerns about terrorist threats, terrorist plots, things like that.
Are there legitimate concerns?
Well, there certainly have legitimate concerns about terrorism within that region. I think there are other mechanisms and ways whereby you can assure your security.
If you are concerned about terrorism and instability through the possibility of terrorist acts, is that a legitimate reason to make sure that you don't allow encrypted messaging to contribute to that?
The short answer would be no. It's obviously legitimate that law enforcement should be able to gain access to the communications of people they suspect, but one of the things we have in the society like the UK or the US is oversight. The thing that removing encryption makes possible is secret wiretapping, which I think pretty much everybody would be opposed to. Nobody wants to give the law enforcement people a blank check.
It's one thing saying that actually steps have been taken in Saudi Arabia. Another thing saying that the UEA, which is meant to be Western, facing, is moving on this. They must have presumably thought about this long and hard,
but it's not just
and have some reason.
But it's not just them. I mean, India is trying to do a slightly different version of the same kind of thing. There are a number of countries. Pakistan, Bangladesh. These are not usually countries that the UK wants to emulate.
I produced the first cybersecurity policy for this country and was the first cybersecurity minister. And actually what's interesting is the biggest area of concern for us was actually individuals' data, individuals' personality, people stealing their personality, all of these issues. So we were quite pleased that someone like Blackberry is producing something that doesn't enable one to do it. Now, it's absolutely true, I believe, any country has the absolute right, and indeed should, be able to have a mechanism, a legal mechanism, whereby if it knows, and in this country what we do is present a case to say, X, Mr. X and Mrs. X or whatever, they are in a plot, here is the evidence, it goes through a judge, it goes on the way up to the Secretary of State, who then says, right, in that case you can look at their communications. But now, any country should be allowed to do that, I believe.
But and you presumably say that this sets a dangerous precedent in terms of privacy.
I think they need to think through very carefully exactly what they're doing. I imagine they have concerns because they're not able to get free and constant access in a way that people won't know to all of this data. I'm not sure that's a good thing for any state.
But this country went through something like that in the 1990s. We fought over encryption for 10 years, trying to get people to recognize that it was actually a really important peacetime thing for people to be able to protect things like financial transactions on the web. And we fought a huge battle over key escrow and leading up to the regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, where you should draw the line between what communications should be accessible and by whom and under what conditions.
Well, the US said tonight that this was a dangerous step.
Well, this key escrow and things like that, I mean, it is fascinating, as one of your previous commentators just said. Of course, it's one of these things, when I come on a programme like this, I'm always very nervous because I know so much. And also people, people don't necessarily always tell the truth.
But
that sounds an awful thing to say, but do you want anyone to know that you can get into very high encrypted stuff? No, you can say we can't do it.
But can
they do it?
Isn't there a kind of grey area? I mean, to be honest, isn't there a grey area in Britain as well? If there's you say that they have to, the authorities have to go for an individual decision. based on whether or not there is some kind of threat or not. But the fact is that GCHQ has got enormous, not should we say power, but enormous abilities. Whether or not something's encrypted, that's the truth.
GCHQ and NSA have unbelievable capability.
Yes.
It is truly mind-boggling, and anyone who wishes to be an enemy of our country needs to think about that quite carefully. However, all of those things are applied to our citizens through a proper legal process.
Are you as sanguine?
I think it's important that there is a good legal process. One of the really upsetting things today was hearing that President Obama wants to remove some legal oversight in the U.S. So, this is a battle that is constantly fought in every country.
Do you think this will happen in October, or do you think there'll be moves to change it?
I think the UAE, I know the UAE well, and I hope they'll be sensible enough to reconsider this and think maybe this isn't the right thing to do.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.